Hi, and welcome to the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Nick Angiers. Today we have a listener question, which means we have a listener. And this is from Rudolph from Facebook. If you are not Rudolph from Facebook, then we have more than one listener. So Rudolph asks about the digitization of the board game industry. I feel that this COVID crisis is not going to be over anytime soon. What does it mean for the industry in the future? The border between video and board games may become a little more blurry. So first of all, Rudolph, thanks very much for your question. By the way, if you'd like to get in touch with me, the best way is probably through Facebook. So it's just /MeepleLeaf. And I post all these episodes on there when they air in podcast form, and also the YouTube link. So that's the best way to ask questions and to comment on videos and the podcast. So I'd like to answer this question from two perspectives. One is from the point of view of the industry itself, and the other is from our perspective as entrepreneurs working in the board game industry. So first of all, I think that with so many people playing games online, more so than in person, and much more so than in the past, I think a lot of board game publishers are catching on very quickly to the importance of having tabletop simulator ports of games and also digital versions of games. So the main reason why board game companies would make a digital version of a game that they've published is because it supports the game. They'll get some sales from the digital version, but they'll also get some more discoverability that they wouldn't otherwise get. They can also do sales promotions where people can download the digital copy of the game at a discounted price or whatever. And the cost per unit is actually zero. So the more people are playing this game, the more awareness there's going to be of the game. And I personally have played games first in digital form and then realized, this is a really cool game. I'm going to get it. Another reason why I played digital versions of games is that I can practice it. So if I find a game that I like and I only had like one chance to play it and I want to get better at it or explore the game mechanisms, maybe I don't own it or I don't have many chances to play it. So I'll get the digital version and play it like that. And then of course there's online play. You can play with random people if you want, or you can play with friends, or you can play against the AI. So it's a great way to really pad out the experience of a game. And in recent times, I think this has become increasingly important. Board Game Arena is a great platform that was just flooded. The first time I tried to go on it at the beginning of the pandemic, it said that the server couldn't take any more users. That's how popular it was. So I think moving forward, any game that gets released, the publisher is going to consider more carefully whether or not to make a digital version. And there's probably going to be more digital versions of games. One thing we don't see a lot of is when Kickstarters go live, usually they'll have a tabletop simulator port of it, but tabletop simulator is very clunky, it's very hard to use. It has its own learning curve, so for people who are just discovering the game, it's not the best. Usually the best they can do is, a playthrough video, a rules video, a preview video, that kind of thing. Now, if they had a digital version released with the Kickstarter, even if it's just a demo, I think that will really help people decide if the game is right for them or not. And Kickstarter has just kind of taken off the past decade. But there are a lot of things now that are standard on a Kickstarter, like animated GIFs showing components and mechanisms, even 3D models of the miniatures. You didn't see those 5-6 years ago, but now it's totally normal. So I think in the future we're going to see digital versions of games released alongside the Kickstarter, and just for a lot of smaller games in general. I know On Tour, that's a roll and write game where you're like a band traveling across North America. They had a digital version of that, and they were actually giving it away for free, at least for a while. And that was to help promote the game. So you could play the digital version, then you think, oh yeah, I get this game, it's kind of cool. And then you go and back the Kickstarter. So I think a lot of publishers will incorporate that into their strategy. Another cool thing that I heard about recently was Pandemic Legacy Season 0, which is going to be huge. So that's the prequel to the first two Pandemic Legacies. And they actually offered like a demo model, a demo scenario on Tabletop Simulator. So that was to coincide with Gen Con. They normally would have had a demo at Gen Con that you could go and visit and play. But since there are no physical conventions this year, they just put this free demo online so you can go and you can play the first scenario to get an idea of how the game actually works. And that's totally new. We never had that last year even. So I think we'll see more of that. Okay, and on to my second part of my answer. So for people working in the board game industry who aren't publishers, I think there's going to be a lot of different things that we can do with the digital space that we wouldn't have had to think about before. So digital conventions, virtual conventions are obviously a big one. So any convention organizer had to react to the situation this year and either cancel the event or take their convention online. A lot of them opted to choose online. And we discovered a few things because of that. First of all, it's a lot of work to host a virtual convention, maybe as much, in some ways more, in some ways less work than a real convention, especially because it was our first year. So they had to figure out how to do it. And everybody did it kind of differently. There was some overlap, but for the most part, some would have panel talks, some would have live plays or live demos from publishers, digital rooms where you can go and play digital games. So it was interesting to see and hear about the different solutions that convention organizers came up with. Personally, as an event organizer, so I don't do conventions yet, but I do local regular events, and it was kind of tough when I had to cancel all the events and all the other events were canceled. After about 4 months, I did a tiny Maple Leaf, what did I call it, mini-con for 2 days. And that was fun, but it just didn't feel right, And then with the second wave, it didn't feel safe, so I didn't do any more after that. And I've switched to just online games, which have been okay. It's been better than nothing, but still, I can't wait to get back to real gaming. So for local events, I think it's going to help people appreciate the fact that we have these when we do get back into them. So it'll give us a chance to reorganize. And then also, like board game cafes. I know Stormcrow has been closed for a while. Actually, they closed one of their locations in Vancouver, the original one. And then the Ale House is open again. In the meantime, they started a web store where you can buy merchandise and shirts and masks and stuff. And apparently that's been going really well. A lot of retailers, they're switching to online orders so that instead of going and browsing at the store, they had to make a web store right away so that people could buy from there. And people are buying and they're selling. So I think everybody's business model in this industry is going to change. All businesses are going to incorporate some kind of online model or some kind of online platform into their model. And that's just how we've had to adapt. So it's really changed the face of the entire industry and even the hobby, at least for now. Personally, I can't wait to get back to real life events. All right, well, hopefully that answers your question, Rudolph. Thanks once again. So that's it for this episode. Next up, I would like to tell you about how I got a government grant to host board game events. So I got a grant from the Vancouver Foundation. It's a government sponsorship for $500, and I used it to buy board games. So more details on that in the next episode of the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast.